All right, welcome to the show. This is the Black Swan special edition. We have on our channel a couple of special guests. Pete Garcia is still flying in, but we have Barber in the back. And as soon as Pete comes on, we'll bring him on. We'll bring him on to the show. Should be here anytime. So I just wanted to say hi to everyone real quick. Welcome to the show. We're going to be talking about LA fires. We're going to be talking about end times and what's coming down the pipes for 2025. There's lots of stuff going on already. Like, it is crazy. It's only like 12 days in. It's crazy. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring on Bob Barber.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Bob. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Glad to be on.
How you been?
I've been doing pretty good. Just enjoying this week, seeing how nothing's been going on. That's prophetic. Trying to dig for information, just nothing's happening,
Yeah, it's been a quiet week. Like, it's just like nothing going on. What do we do with ourselves?
Besides that big, we're talking about earlier, that big geese migration that took place over there in California. A whole bunch of black swans just, crash landed in Los Angeles. So they're all cruising around over there.
Yeah.
So, how about that?
Have you ever been to California?
Nope. No, I haven't.
No, I think I've flown over there to go to, like, landed in airports and transferring to other planes, but haven't hung out there. But it's kind of interesting. I've been doing a little bit of digging because we want to talk about the California wildfires. And the more I dig, the more I end up going down these rabbit holes. And I'm trying my hardest, bro. I honestly am. I'm trying my hardest to stay out of rabbit holes. But sometimes you can't help it. You just dive in, and then hopefully one day you come back out. But there's rumors with, I was just watching an interview with Mel Gibson talking about the resurrection and different things that he's working on, that he said even in his neighborhood, like, his house was toast when he was on the Joe Rogan podcast last week or a few days ago, and his house literally burnt down while he was on the show. And he said in his neighborhood, there were people spotted. One guy was caught in another neighborhood. They said he was like a homeless guy on a bicycle with a flamethrower and starting fires here and there. And while it was going on, like, while there were fires, this guy got caught. And Mel Gibson said that this is just one of many stories of people seeing people in places that they shouldn't be, and they're heavily equipped to start fires. Heavily equipped. And this is Mel Gibson. And I've heard this story, and I've read articles where people are saying, like the New York Times, LA Times, all this stuff are saying that there's people being arrested for arson, and then they're let go afterwards because there's not enough evidence. Well, if you have a flamethrower, isn't that enough? Is that enough evidence? It's a crazy world.
Here's a problem with that. Okay. I've done work with fire, a lot of work. I worked in steel mills, so we had to use fire for heating up steel, for bearings, big, huge bearings. We had to heat these things up with torches, and done a lot of firework and stuff like that. And I'll tell you what, a guy running around the neighborhood with a flamethrower is not going to cause a car to melt. Okay. You can burn the paint. You can burn the interior. Okay. You might be able to blacken the fence. All right. You might be able to do some of that stuff. I started tons of fires and just getting rid of stuff. And I tell you, just my experience, I'm not a firefighter, but I have a friend of mine that is. And he said, this is all bull crap. All right. You know what's starting these fires? This stuff right here. You see that?
Oh, wow. Is that one of those
directed energy weapons. This is what's going on before the fires took place.
Interesting.
Directed energy weapon can do that because what it does, it creates what I'm seeing is, I don't know exactly how this works, but from my layman's perspective, if I can put this together, is they prep the land, which we've been seeing going on like a week before. You see the lights coming down. They're like a big light comes down, it covers the whole area, and they're doing all this prepping. All right, they're ionizing all the steel and everything's getting charged up, kind of like with the 9/11 towers. Okay, and they're shooting this light everywhere. No fires are starting, but we've seen all the videos. I got a big list of them off of TikTok, people's phones. All right, and all these weird lights in this area, shine a light here, shine a light here. Okay, and just doing all this weird work. And then in one day, they fire this weapon, and this weapon starts, and it shows it. 3 beams come down, like just like this, and it starts 3 fires in the triangle, all right, in the mountains. And then all of a sudden, that fire just catches everywhere, all right. And what's interesting, the trees are okay. That's another thing, all right. You figure that all the trees caught on fire and carried the fire to all the homes and burnt all the cars. All the trees are fine. I've seen the pictures. All the trees are fine. So it leads me to think climate weapon. They want climate control. They hate cars. They want to get rid of cars. So cars get decimated. And they don't like people living in that area. And I get it. They have this whole thing about LA coming, the smart LA for 2028. That's in their plan. So if you're going to have a new LA, the smart LA, then what's going to happen to the old LA? What do you do with that? Well, you burn it to the ground. So that's exactly what they did. And they also show that the houses, a lot of people are touching the homes. The fires are starting on the insides of the homes. And then it goes to the outside. The fireproof roofs were collapsing on the homes that were burning from the inside out. All right. That's another thing I noticed. All right. So essentially, they prepped all the land. I don't understand how this whole thing works. Okay. But for what I've seen, they essentially charged up this land somehow, some way, and made it so susceptible and so reactive to fire and heat that when the fire was finally added, it just went up like a candlestick. Essentially, it's like dumping gasoline all over Los Angeles. That's what they did. All right. And they saturated it. Okay. And then once all that prep work was done, all they had to do is add the fire, and that fire went. And these people said it's the worst fire ever in the history of California, history of the nation. It was worse than the Chicago fires. Okay. And they said that the reporter said this fire they never seen fire react this way. The firefighters said the fires never reacted this way. And then on top of it, you get 40 to 50 to 90 mile an hour winds that just so happen to conveniently show up at the exact same time that these fires ran their course. Okay, this was not natural. This was totally man-made. All right. And this was done via, I'm saying, space weapons that did it. And going back to what you say about the people running around like, oh, these guys got torches. Oh, they found these guys over setting fires in the woods. No, that's just cover, because they realize that it's the equipment they have in space doing all this stuff. All right. It's not people running around with blow torches. All right. That's all cover. I saw a story where they were blaming some big companies, CEOs. They were trying to take over the real estate area. So they had sophisticated equipment to start fires. Okay. Maybe there might be a little bit of truth, because they said they have sophisticated equipment to start fires, and they didn't disclose the equipment. Okay. So it's not people running around starting fires. Okay. Those fires cannot get going quick enough just by some guys throwing, cocktails full of fire, a guy with a torch, not being able to melt cars. You see the picture of the cars? They pick the cars that people walk past. The metal is like mercury, like liquid metal, and floating onto the walk up, and you like snap it off the ground. I worked with steel, Shane. You know how much our mill had to reheat? You know how hot our mills had to get, our reheat furnaces have to get to melt the steel? It had to get to 2,000 degrees just to get the steel to turn orange. All right. 2,000 degrees. If you want to melt inside there, now you're looking more along the lines of about 4,000, 5,000 degrees. Okay, you are not going to be able. I don't care what these guys do with their fires. They're not going to be able to set enough fires to accumulate that much heat that quickly. Anyway, I don't care how many trees you set on fire; it'll never get that hot. Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting when you mention heat. Like, yeah, like we've seen blowtorches and all this kind of stuff. You can heat up wood. Sometimes that even takes a little while just to get the kindling going. So I'm seeing video footage of homes. It looks like a disaster area. It looks like literally like Armageddon. Like these homes are disintegrated like cinder, metal. Everything is just like there's nothing left of these homes. And I've seen some ancient footage of the Chicago fires. A lot of those houses are, like you said, burnt from the outside in, and half the home is left, and then it jumps to the next home, because that's how the fire naturally goes. It doesn't necessarily hit every home, disintegrate every home, and then move on to the next. They jump here, they go to this neighborhood, then that neighborhood, or this house, maybe this car gets missed, whatever. It's like it just goes wherever the oxygen is or whatever. And I agree with the idea that the homeless idea that somebody has a torch. That's just like saying somebody was walking by with a cigarette and that caused this whole thing. Like it's too weak of an argument. And I know that firefighters, if you do an investigation, they know what they're looking for to see if these fires have been started inside. They'll look at patterns. They have dog sniffers that'll basically, if there's any type of chemical that was used to start some of these fires, these canine units will find it. It's just a matter, are they going to release this stuff to the public, and are they just wanting to burn this place down so they can? All I hear from the mayor and I forget what the guy's name, Newsom, is he the mayor? And then
Newsom, yeah,
and the firefighters, like not the firefighter, but I think there was another lady, black lady, I forget what her name is.
They have all the DEI.
Talking about we're preparing for the next time, because what we're going to do is we're going to rebuild LA, and I'm like, too soon. Like, you don't talk about that rebuilding, because Monday they're already saying wave 2 is coming in, more winds, more this, more that, and I'm like, this isn't over yet. This is just the beginning. And we were talking earlier about these Diddy files, or these Diddy lists that are supposed to come out one day. All these celebrity homes are getting torched. And I'm like, if you have evidence in these homes, computers, places where they did stuff, hid children, whatever it is, all kinds of, like, you think the firefighting is bad or the fires are bad, you're actually feeding conspiracy theorists. Like, you're feeding us, and I would consider myself sometimes a conspiracist.
Repeat.
Welcome, Pete. But they're feeding us this stuff so that we run with it. It's like all you have to do is just say, here's how the fire started, and then off you go. But they're not doing that. They're just talking about rebuilding already. Anyways, Pete, welcome to the show. We just got started, bro. We just got started.
And I thought this was on the Sunday. I was thinking this was next Sunday, not this Sunday. So I apologize. I was at the I took my kids to the gym. We played basketball, swam, and then took them to McDonald's. And
all of a sudden there's a little prick in your conscience that's like, hey, where should I be right now? Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Yeah, no, my pleasure.
So we're just talking about I think where we got to is we landed the black swan geese in LA, and we're talking about what's going on with all these wildfires and all this kind of stuff. Like, it's crazy. And now the conspiracies start coming up, and I think some of them have a lot of legs. Like they are legit stuff is going on. Like you can't help, and I'd be interested to hear a little bit of your opinion, because again, I lean a little bit more on the conspiracy side than not. I feel like these fires are man-made, a huge portion of it. What are your thoughts? Is that the general consensus, or am I crazy?
You are a little bit crazy, but you're not wrong.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I know I am crazy. But it just feels, it smells funny. It smells weird, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, certainly residents from there have long complained about the homeless that have set fires. For any number of reasons. You've got a lot of criminal gangs that are probably taking advantage of the chaos right now. We've certainly seen the devastation across many of the different sections of the Los Angeles County and Malibu and Santa Monica and all up and down that area there. I think it was just a convergence of poor emergency management. They weren't prepared for the fire if and when it did come. They certainly should have expected it due to the kinds of winds, the Santa Ana winds and stuff. And that's political from the mayor's office on down. And then you have the overall mismanagement of the natural resources in California from the governor's office on down. They certainly have prioritized this tiny fish over the lives of millions of Californians. So that tells you where their priorities are. But here's for me the big takeaway. Okay, aside from the fact that they're probably never going to be able to build those houses again. They're not only because they don't have the insurance now to cover, but because of the prioritization of making the 15-minute cities. And it's the same situation that we saw in Hawaii, a summer or two ago. It's incredibly, think about a house that you have there. Let's say you built a house, or you had a house built there in a neighborhood 30, 40 years ago, and the cost of that house is quadrupled since then. And you don't have insurance to cover you. You're never going to get those built. So they're going to, and now this was the plan going forward, right? That they would try to make these little smart cities and whatnot, community housing where you're living in these apartments or dorms or whatever. And people aren't just going to do that. So they're going to have to bring in people that will move into those. But the big takeaway for me is it's kind of like the Hegelian dialectic, where you have the thesis, the antithesis, and then the synthesis, right? So Satan, I think, has been using this woke movement. I mean, you take everything from the last 15 years and even earlier, going all the way back to the 1920s, but really it's been on steroids in the last 15, 20 years. This woke politics that have really just driven people to desperation. And it seems like everything the left is doing now is falling apart. It is being thrown back in their face, and they're suffering the consequences, and it's giving steam and power and energy and momentum to the other side of the political spectrum, who I am absolutely convinced that Trump is not the Antichrist. I don't think he is at all. But there are people that are jumping on his coattails that I have questions about, that I think may eventually use things like this to consolidate their power. So I do think that this is part and parcel with what the final beast kingdom is going to look like. And I've said this for a long time, that the beast kingdom, the Antichrist, he is not going to be woke. He is not going to, and as much as we want the Antichrist to be somebody like Obama or, George Soros or somebody on the far left, I think this guy is going to be a politician for everybody. And if he's a politician for everybody, he's going to have to rule initially, at least introduce himself as a common sense, pragmatic fixer, a guy that can get things done, because he realizes, the Antichrist or whoever, Satan realizes that woke policy is built in fantasy. It doesn't work in reality. He knows that because he's the one that's crafting these lies. He knows it doesn't work. Yeah. But when somebody comes along and then has common sense and has solutions for these things, he's now hailed as the savior, right? So I think that this is part of this collapsing narrative of the Democrat side of the politics, the left, the woke, the progressive, Marxist, whatever. I think it's all kind of crumbling and falling in on itself. And
Yeah.
it's an opportunity for Christians in California and for Christians around the world to pray for California and hope that people have their eyes opened. People that had been kind of on auto control, cruise control for however many years and not really been thinking about it. And if you're in California in September of this last year and you're voting Democrat, you're towing the party line of Marxism, progressivism, and you see what happens over in North Carolina with Hurricane Helene, you're like, oh, that sucks for them, but they probably deserve it because they're Trump supported. And then all of a sudden the destruction falls on their head there, like in a huge way. I think it's going to open their eyes. So what I guess to summarize that to end my diatribe here is that it seems like everything, not just this fire, but everything the left touches right now is falling apart, and everything that Trump touches is either coming true, something that he had foretold that was going to happen, or had already warned about and said, hey, you guys need to change this, because he's operating in the real world in common sense.
Yeah.
And this other side has been living off of, La La Land, trying to protect smelts or whatever kind of fish, and dumping fresh water into the ocean. So it's a change in the tide, and I think this nationalist populist type of thing is what the Antichrist will ride in on to a certain extent, because we're seeing nationalist movements rise all over the world, even in Canada, with the ousting or the resignation of Trudeau, with Bolsonaro, or what's his name in Brazil, that guy that was thrown in, their prime minister that was thrown in, or president that was thrown in prison. Yeah, I think he'll come back out and he end up running again or ruling. And then Poland, Hungary, every place that has applied conservative, pragmatic leadership, things seem to be going well for them. In places where they've tried to go woke, tried to go left, whatever, they're the ones that are just, everything is being dumped on their heads, whether it's in the UK, it's in Canada, it's in the California, New York, any place where this progressive policies take kind of dump predominance. It's all falling apart on them right now. So that's kind of how I'm seeing it right now. But I do think, I don't think Antichrist or the Trump is Antichrist, but I do think there are people that are around him that I'm curious about, that they may play a role as one of the 10 kings or even the false prophet or something. So I'm watching this. I'm watching this all kind of come about, and seeing how everything's fallen into place, and everything seems to be moving in one direction, in Trump's direction, or at least in the nationalist side, moving in that direction. So,
yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you know what? You're talking about the. I have this list here. I sent it to your email, Shane Black Swan email.
Okay.
And I can't share it here, but I hate this computer here. I got my setup, but anyhow, I sent you a picture. Basically, what it is.
You want me to bring it up?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a list of cities that are on the C40. It's on the C40 UN Climate Agenda city list. Okay. If your city is on this list, you're going to end up just like LA. All right. So I'm going to bring up a list of cities. These are all the cities that are on this list. And all these cities are coastal cities that go all the way around the country. All right. And I've seen it talked about before. China wants to make a beachhead in California, so that way they can essentially take down the rest of the United States. And I think our enemies are wanting to do the same thing, make beachheads all the way around the nation and then work their way in. Okay. So essentially the cities on the coast going all the way around the country are going to see essentially more, no pun intended, the heat first. Okay. So this is the list of cities right here. We just saw Los Angeles. Okay. So I'll read them to you right here. So you have Austin, Texas, Boston, Massachusetts, Chicago, Illinois, Houston, Texas, Phoenix, Arizona, Los Angeles, Miami, New Orleans, New York City, Philadelphia, Portland, San Francisco, Seattle, and Washington, D.C. Now, how many of these cities here are blue cities? Yeah. How many here are blue cities? Are there any red cities on here? Austin's not a red city. That's a blue city, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Austin,
very
Texas.
blue.
Yeah, so they are all blue cities here. There are no red cities here. Okay. These are all the cities that are going to end up like Los Angeles. All right. Maui's not on here because of what happened in Lahaina. That's not part. It's a part of the United States, but that's not on the continent though. So these are the cities. If you're in any of these cities, get out. All right. They are use these cities as 15-minute cities. That's what they're going to do. All right. They're going to make 15-minute cities. Chicago essentially is like the only one that's like right in the middle because everybody else is pretty much on the border going around.
Can you explain, perhaps you or Pete can you explain the 15-minute city? I have a basic idea of it, but what the purpose of that would be?
15-minute cities is ultimate control for you. You won't have a car. You want no way to get around. You need a mark of the beast to live and sustain yourself there. They'll have all the resources in all these cities. They essentially are going to do away with everything else. And the only place that you can live a decent life here in America is going to be in a 15-minute city. Okay. And to get into 15-minute city, you're going to need the mark of the beast. So that way they can track and trace you. All right. So essentially what they're doing right now, they are creating these cities all the way around the country. So that way, after the nuclear war or however, once they depopulate everybody, then they're going to take the remnants and move them to these cities, and they have to end up taking the mark or something like it. Okay, so I remember, I hope that this video does not get taken down because I seen Craig Hodges from the Common Sense Show talk about this stuff, and they ended up taking them down.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's interesting.
We'll see how you do with this.
Yeah,
for sure. Talk about this, but
it's interesting. Mel Gibson said he can't quite put his finger on it because his home got burnt down, and he knows lots of people that their homes were burnt down. And he says, I don't know, like, I don't want to go down the conspiracy, but it seems kind of weird that the fire hydrants were empty or didn't have enough pressure. It seems weird that some of the drainage ditches or whatever that they have for reserve were empty or rechanneled somewhere else. And even Canada, allegedly the 51st state, our water coming down got rerouted out into the Pacific, which is kind of weird in itself. So all these things, and he said, I don't know. Like, he just kind of threw up his hands with I think he was on Ingrid's show, and he said, I don't know. It kind of feels like they're trying to empty the state, something like that. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. To clear out a state and then you can start rebuilding. What do you think about that, Pete?
I think that we call that weaponized immigration, and we've seen Putin do that in using Turkey and in moving mass amounts of people out of the Middle East into Europe to flood Europe to give them all sorts of problems. I think it's kind of like that here in the United States, except with Americans on one hand. So, for example, during 2020, we had our state in Texas was not as draconian as it was in, say, California or Michigan or New York or any of these other kind of really blue states. And what we saw is a ton of people moving to Texas. And what that did here was not only did it introduce a huge influx of people immigrating, from one state to another, it had all kinds of second and third order effects. Like, it drove up property values, drove up property taxes, school taxes. I mean, just across the board, it puts a strain on everything. And so there's that kind of one thing. And I do think they are trying to clear people out in order to invest in these smart cities. So they'll have these little tiny communities that are tightly controlled. You don't have to leave them. In fact, you can't leave them. You're only allowed to leave them so many times a year, or you start getting fined, et cetera, et cetera. And it's all green. It's all this. But with that said, what I mentioned earlier, with everything the left touching right now is seemingly kind of falling apart and crumbling in their hands. I don't know how much that will actually come to fruition in the time that we have remaining. But I agree with Bob there. If you're in a blue city, which most of the major cities, the urban areas have Democrat type leadership, we don't know how many people have come into the United States over the last 4 years. Certainly, I've heard estimates of about 10,000 military-age Chinese males have come in, and we've lost track of them. There's all sorts of people that have come across the border. We had just the other day, a Wagner Russian mercenary guy was caught at the border with $4,000 and who knows what else. So I do think there are sleeper cells in the United States. I think they have the greatest amount of freedom to maneuver, plan, scheme, and do whatever they're going to do in these blue cities, because it's nearly impossible for law enforcement to enforce the law in those type of areas because of all the Democrat policies that basically make it almost illegal to arrest people, even if they're committing a crime. I mean, literally, in California, they caught the guy, this homeless guy, starting fires with a blowtorch. They citizens arrest. They held on to him until the police arrived. The police then said, "Well, we don't have enough to hold him on," even though they had eyewitnesses showing him lighting the fires. He was caught with a blowtorch. He's whatever, and they still let him go. That's the kind of lunacy that is causing people to abandon the Democrat Party. That's the same kind of policies that gave Trump the popular vote and the electoral college landslides that he did. Because you're not operating in common sense anymore. It's even the most diehard leftist at a certain point has got to realize, like, my party has failed me. The system, this thing I believed in, has failed me, and they're jumping ship. So I know there is the hope that we could turn California red and bring in conservative leaders or restorationist type leaders. I just think it's too late at this point. I don't know. It's the Titanic has already hit the iceberg at this point. I mean, we're just starting to list to one side at this point.
Right.
I don't know that we can correct this already. And so.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Pete, because look, we saw the weapons that they used, directed energy weapons, and the work that they did to scan this area and prep this area and then to ignite it. Okay, so this is some pretty heavy duty, hardcore, massively funded, untouchable people, organizations, somebody doing this. Okay, and it could be extraterrestrial. We saw a lot of weird stuff flying through these fires. You got to keep thinking about that too. All right, so a lot of weird stuff happens before a city goes down. And guess what? A lot of this stuff happened in Lahaina too, before it got burned up. They had all the same stuff, all the same prepping, stuff flying around, weird noises, explosions. And then all of a sudden, one day, less than a day, the entire place burns to the ground and it melts all the cars. But funny, all the trees are untouched. That's strange. All the tree it's hot enough to melt a car and melt metal, but the leaves on the tree are fine. That's some pretty sophisticated equipment. But if you knew what the fallen angels and the whole green agenda and the types of stuff I've seen about these aliens who want to come and present themselves to save humanity, these aliens are all about earth worship. And they're all about preserving trees, and they're all about preserving everything. And they are basically like these. They basically have this religion here where if you did a good job taking care of trees and preventing trees from being destroyed, and you saved a bunch of trees through your political actions, stuff like that, you are going to be greatly rewarded by these beings, whoever these beings are. Okay, so they have this religion that they set forth, and people are going to be rewarded for saving the planet, for saving trees, just like we are rewarding the body of Christ for sharing the gospel, building the kingdom, and praying, and everything that we do. These people are being rewarded for saving the green. Now, I know the book of Revelation said that God destroys a third part of the green parts of the earth. Okay, God is not about the earth. God is about his people. Okay, God's about us. So he's going to destroy everything that these people are worshiping. Okay, because they should be worshiping God, and they should not be worshiping these trees and all the people.
That was my bad. Sorry about that. I was trying to mute my mic.
And all the people that were worshiping these beings, trying to follow these beings. And I think our government, a bunch of the people in our government and governments around the world, they are essentially serving these fallen beings or whatever they are because they're a part of the climate religion. We hear about the climate religion, right? Everybody hears about this whole climate religion, the green religion. Okay. Well, they're trying to get rewarded for saving the earth. Okay, and you saw this weapon that they used right here in LA. Look at the pictures. Look at the pictures. Go look at it. You've noticed that the trees are all intact. And how does that fire was? That tree should have been like decimated. It should have went all the way down to the stump. Okay, but the trees are intact. They weren't burned to the ground. Okay, you ever done a campfire? What happens to that tree, that wood, when you burn it? It turns to ash. Okay, especially when you're around 4,000 to 5,000 degrees. All right, these trees are perfectly intact. So basically, this weapon is able to destroy everything except greenery, which is strange. I don't know. That's why it's like, was it humans doing this, or was it something more supernatural taking out this stuff? Because these trees should be gone, and they're all perfectly intact.
It could be both. I mean, I think that there's like you said, like Lahaina. I mean, I certainly feel like there's some government tech involved, whether they're direct energy weapons or whatever the case is. And I think they had the right conditions, they had the right wind. They knew that the LA was not prepared for what if they were to do that. They may be prepping it before Trump takes over. I don't know what the reason it is behind that. And they may have also had homeless. They may have paid them, here's $20, go out and start some fires or whatever. They may have incentivized some of these miscreants because ultimately they would take the fall for it, right? So they know that. But one of the things I saw was fascinating, and several other programs have had it on the footage of like there's a video of a UFO kind of flying across the screen and going in the opposite direction as a plane. So you can see the clear differences between the two, not just in the shape and stuff, but how fast one was moving versus the other. The other videos I saw were these black, I don't know, spirit-looking things. If you remember that video they had from Iraq, it was some kind of I don't know what it was. You couldn't see it with the naked eye. You had to look through like infrared or like a FLIR type of camera, like a forward-looking infrared camera to see the thing. But it was floating over a base, a military base. I'm sure you've seen the video footage of that. It kind of looked like that, but it also kind of looked like a Dementor from a Harry Potter, like these black ghost things with like these spectrals with trails and stuff. And there's been several videos of those things, and then it's flying amongst the smoke in these fire struck areas. Very, very bizarre. I have no idea what that is, but so there's kind of like 3 or 4 things going on right now. You've got mismanagement from the state and the city. You have perhaps some type of deep state type of intervention or action with these type of laser weapons. You have probably the same people paying homeless and other folks, maybe criminals, to go out and start fires. And then the last thing is this other non-human entity or non-human technology operating in these fire areas. So to me, there's kind of like those 4 things happening all at once. And it's like so much other things we've seen over the last couple of months here with the drones, the orbs, the plasmoids, the just all the other bizarre things, the Las Vegas Cybertruck, the New Orleans. I mean, I on X, on Twitter, I wrote everything down just from the last couple of months, and it took me 3 posts to do everything just because I wanted to keep it for myself. All the weird, bizarre stuff that's happening it's just bizarre. It's just absolutely bizarre. It doesn't make any sense. And we don't have any, that's the commonality in all of those things. There's no clear answer. There's no clear explanation for what's happening. And I think it's designed to introduce fear and confusion to us, and that they're using, whoever is doing this behind this is using fear and confusion as a tool to drive us into a predetermined position. And I'm not a huge Alex Jones fan, but years ago, I'm talking, I want to say this must have been 2020. And I was driving and I turned on the radio and I just caught part of his program. I didn't even know who it was because I never really listened to him before that. And you hear the drum beats, right? You have the kind of like the tribal drum beats going, and he's narrating, and he's talking about a mammoth hunt and how in his mind, he's explaining this, how the cavemen used to hunt mammoth. They would line along these, they would basically catch a mammoth and kind of start creating a bunch of noise with these drums and stuff. And then they would start getting this mammoth panicked, and they would drive this mammoth into to where a cliff was, and they'd drive it off the cliff. Basically, they'd get it so worked up and frenzied, it would run off the cliff and it would die. And then that's how they killed them. And I don't believe in cavemen, but I think that's probably a pretty a good tactic that primitive or indigenous folks from around the world have used that to hunt certain types of animals. If you watched Apocalypto, the movie Mel Gibson did, a fantastic movie, where they're hunting at the very, very beginning of the movie, they're hunting this whatever's native to the Mexico there. It was like a giant pig, boar, or whatever. And they basically do the same thing. They drums, make a bunch of noise. They get this boar running in a particular direction. They run it right into the trap, and it springs that trap and it kills it. And all this fear and confusion, I feel like it's getting us to all worked up and frenzied to go in a particular direction. And I feel like that direction is the cliff. So I think we have to have calm heads. We have to look at these things very clearly. Sons of Issachar, understanding the times that we live in and knowing what to do. So I think I'm certainly open to the idea that there's conspiratorial things happening, but I always think it's kind of multifaceted. It's never just like the one thing. Like, J.B. Hickson says, it's never about the thing. It's always about the thing behind the thing. So
exactly.
Anyways, I feel like it's kind of like that.
It's interesting that there's a phenomenon. I don't know what it's called. I don't want to say it's idiots, because I think this can happen to anyone. But when there's a fire, there's always one person that accidentally runs into the fire. I don't know what that's called. Like, you panic and then you go right where the fire is. It's weird, but it happens. Firefighters are like trying to tell people, hey, relax, be calm, look at the direction first before you're leaving the fire, whatever it is. Like, just kind of have a look at your exits. This is why they teach them where all the exits are, because some people in a panic will actually go to the sound of the alarm, or they'll actually go back into the fire, and then they die from smoke inhalation or whatever. And this is almost what I feel, that some people might race back to their homes or whatever to protect them, or who knows what, and end up becoming worse off because they panic instead of just being level-headed and then back up and look at it from 50,000 feet or whatever it is and see what's going on. You don't want to panic right now.
Right. I love what you said there, Pete. It's multifaceted. It is extremely multifaceted. But think about it this way. What Satan's setting up right now, his kingdom, his tribulation kingdom, he has 2,000 years of plan for this. All right, coordinating with those who are going to be working with him, the fallen angels and everything. So there's a lot of coordinating going on right now. For example, like I said about they wouldn't take care of, Gavin Newsom would not take care of the all the shrubbery and all the other stuff all around there. And then they got rid of the water. And then they paid homeless people, a bunch of other people, and even terrorists and people who have come to our country illegally, illegal aliens were starting fires. Okay. And it worked out perfectly because, like I said, those people are going down because people who don't know better are like, oh, all the terrorists start the fire. This is a terrorist attack. I hear people saying that. So this is a terrorist attack. They went around starting fires. Like, no, they want you to think that it was them. So that way you won't take the time to, or even consider looking up for the problem. Okay. And that's what we're trying to show here. It wasn't a terrorist attack. It was a well-organized, well-oiled machine called the Rise of the Beast system that are currently working here on the earth to set up this nation, and along with a host of many other nations that will see the same judgment as what LA saw. Okay. And on top of all that, look at what happened there. You had P. Diddy's home that got destroyed, which helped out all the Hollywood stars, a whole bunch of people. Okay. It was about to be investigated there in about 2 weeks. And guess what? All gone. How convenient. All right. And then you have Biden and the Democrats trying to tick everybody off to start a civil war. What did he do? Well, I think all the multimillionaires and billionaires over there, we should give them 100% money reimbursed for all their multi-million-dollar homes. 100%. No questions asked. And guess what? I'm not going to be the one that does it. I'm going to make Trump do it. Here's the executive order. Now execute it, Trump. Well, you got 180 days to get it done. Take care of my people, Trump. And guess what? I hope Trump does something with that and doesn't pay these people anything. Okay, they don't need, if all their wealth was based in their home, then they shouldn't have been living there in the first place. The fact they handed out $750 checks, they're not even checks, they're loans. And if you don't pay that loan back, you lose everything that you had on that property. Okay. Wow. And then you had to get qualified for it. That's what people in North Carolina got. That's what people in Palestine, Ohio got. And everybody else just got the middle finger. All right. Wow. But those liberals over there, they're sounding board for the Democrat Party, 100% reimbursement for multi-million-dollar homes. That's going to cost us, I heard the number right around $350 billion to replace all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's getting pretty high. Yeah.
Well, but you got to remember, now that I think about it, they're asking for a reimbursement for, the thing is, will the reimbursement go to those who own the homes, or will it go to California where they could take that money and start building their smart city? You know, here's the thing about Trump, though. Trump, remember when he was talking about before he got elected? I think it's 3 days before he got elected. He was talking about, we're going to build new cities, great, incredible city. We're going to rebuild cities all around the nation. All right. I was like, how are you going to do that unless you tear everything down? I was like, you can renovate cities. No, build new cities. He said, we're going to build cities like Dubai. All right. So, but then you look at this climate agenda thing. This climate agenda involves taking out about 30 to 40 different cities all around the United States. And Trump is calling for, hey, we're going to have brand new cities, and they're going to be just like Dubai. So is Trump really the good guy here?
It's a good question, because like I've read all of Trump's books, and so I kind of know some of his tactics when it comes to business relationships and all this kind of stuff. But this stuff is way above my pay grade. I don't know who to trust. We got our own fires to fight in Canada right now with Trudeau resigning, and hopefully we get a better prime minister. We get threats from the U.S. absorbing us into their country. So we got a whole bunch of stuff going on in Canada. No, say no. But there's so much stuff going on right now that is just it's crazy, right? Like, it's absolutely crazy. Like, all the events, we were talking about this. I think you came on my show just like the night of, like Christmas Eve. Were you on my show that night? We're basically, maybe it was just the week before, where we're talking about leading up, that it was kind of quiet, and we'll be surprised. Like, one, if there isn't a rapture, we'll be kind of surprised a little bit. It's like, wow, there's so much stuff going on. We'd be surprised if there wasn't any kind of crazy attack on American soil, like something weird. Like, and then we got the Cybertruck on January 1st, and then we had in New Orleans, I think it was, where you had this other crazy person mowing down people, and it's just like one thing after another in the US. I can't even get out of the United States to see what's going on in Israel or anywhere else, because there's so much stuff going on in Canada and America that either it's distracting us or we're just being bombarded left, right, and center. I don't know if you've had a chance to see what's going on with Israel.
With Israel? No, I haven't. I can't think of nothing major other than out of the ordinary. More threats and stuff like that, but nothing major. I think everything is pretty much status quo. There are continuous fighting and stuff like that.
That's what it feels like. Feels like all the media outlets and everything, every time you turn on any channel, it's all about fires now. In December, everything I saw was about drones. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, drones. Okay, I'm not going to watch, because it's all the same kind of thing. But now it's fires just absorbing everything. and one of the predictions I did a 25 predictions from the Simpson episodes. So I don't know if you saw any of that. Basically, I listed out 25 things that were mentioned in the Simpsons that could happen in 2025. And it's just because you know how accurate they are. They actually been pretty accurate with all their episodes.
Yeah. Plus, Trump said he's going to, when he gets in office, he's going to release all the information about what these drones are here for. Okay. I think these drones are here to start the fires. Okay. Whatever's going on with these drones, they are playing their part in burning down these cities. Okay. So if these drones are here to protect us, if it's good news and it's something that's happening right now, then why don't the Democrats say something about it to make themselves look good, take the credit for it? Why don't they say something about it? Nope. They're not saying nothing. I was like, if it's a good thing, don't you want to get credit for it? If you are preventing a nuclear weapon, if it's spreading, I don't know, some type of vitamin around, making people healthy, wouldn't you want to take credit for it? If it's happening, that's why it happened under your administration. No, the word doesn't, the word of what's actually going on with these drones, the truth about it won't come out until after those people are completely removed from office. That way you can't reach them. You can't punish them. Because these things, whatever these things are, they're not good for us. And those people in charge right now, they're playing a major role in it. And they're going to be hightailing out of here before Trump starts to talk about us. Who starts talking about them? Like, where's Obama at? Where's all these people that had their partners? Where are they at? Well, they already flew to Tahiti or something, you know. And why doesn't Trump say something about these drones now? Okay, if he knows, obviously he knows what they're here for. Why doesn't he say nothing now? Is he like under a gag order or something? Something
well,
that
if you remember back to his first term, he had all sorts of issues getting, right even before he came into office. He got what was it? Crossfire Hurricane was the operation they targeted him because of his, he was trying to set things up ahead of time as well with having his, Michael Flynn and these other guys that were taking cabinet positions, talking to their foreign counterparts. And that's where everything got, boogered up. And so I think he's playing it very just, he's not going to do other than what he says publicly and what he's been cleared to say. I don't think he's going to really release anything until he actually takes office, because I don't think he wants to jinx it. But also, that also means that if the deep state is behind all this and they're the ones doing all this stuff, he may be trying to get himself situated, in a security situation with the right people, right security measures in place, so that he doesn't go the way of a former president in the 60s. He doesn't want to end up like that. So I think he's going to do a lot of stuff. I just think right now he has to wait until when he actually assumes office, even though he's been certified, etc. I think he's very what they call it when you're cautious, overly cautious or whatever, to make sure that he's. But you're right. And here's the thing too, with all of this stuff happening, the drones, the everything that he's probably privy to know. If Kash Patel, he probably doesn't want to jinx Kash Patel's cabinet nomination as FBI, because if Kash gets in, I think Kash, said that, day one he wants to close the J. Edgar Hoover building and turn it into a museum to the deep state. And I think that he could do that. I mean, you could just disperse those agents across the United States to the field offices and have them out actually doing whatever. But I think that Kash Patel, has spoken numerous times about opening up a office that all they do is a disclosure office. All they do is go through everything that's been classified, and just every day they're just putting that stuff back out, like, here it's disclose, open everything up, put it back out to the people. So it's I think he's playing it very cautiously right now, which is why he's not doing more than what he's able to do. And he knows how treacherous and how treasonous the left is, and I think he's in a pretty precarious place until he actually assumes the position itself. I think he's got to really watch his back, and I think even if the folks don't, even if the Senate doesn't approve of, say, Tulsi Gabbard or whoever, I think he's just going to nominate. He can nominate her anyways, and he can just put her in, and she'll have to be in that. She can be in that position for 180 days, or whoever he wants to be in there can be in there in 180 days without having to go through a Senate confirmation process. They'd have to do it at the end of that 180 days again. But yeah, I think he's in a. I think he knows what's going on. I think he's trying to get the Biden administration to fess up and trying to pressure them into. But we'll see. We'll see how that all shakes out. And I will say this to Shane though. I do think Canada will become part of not necessarily the United States. I think this eventually will become like the North American Union. It'll be some type of a regional power structure. After the rapture, and that would include Greenland and Canada. It'll just be all kind of one regional area. And South America, say from Mexico all the way through Central America to South America, could be another region. And that these regions will be controlled. Like one king would control one region, another would control another region. So I think him even throwing this out there, Greenland, Canada, etc., I think that's prophetic in the sense that that's, I think, what's going to take shape as we see things moving forward. And I know Canadians don't want to be Americans, and Greenlanders, I think they're pretty much open to it right now because they've pretty much been ignored since Truman. I can't remember the last president that even mentioned this. It may have been Reagan, but before Reagan, it was Truman. So I think they're on board. They may go on to like some status to where, kind of like the Puerto Rico or the Marshall Islands or some of these other Guam, where they're not officially a state, but they are tied in with the United States too. So I do see Canada as part of the North American region that ultimately becomes one of the regions that the Beast Kingdom controls. U.S., Canada, Greenland, everything that would be one region. So by that point, the U.S. will collapse. Let me say this last thing. I pulled my Bible out earlier. I'm a big. It's just a pet theory. It is not something I'm going to die. It's not a hill I'm going to die on or anything like that. But when you read about the trumpet judgments in Revelation chapter 8, the first trumpet judgment, it says the first angel sounded and fire and hail followed, mingled with blood, and they were thrown to the earth, and a third of the trees were burned up, and all the green grass was burned up. If you go to the Audubon Society and do a little digging, you'll see that a third of the trees in the world are in the Americas, North, Central, South America has a third of all the trees.
Good point.
A third of the oceans is the Atlantic. If the United States is Mystery Babylon, which I'm becoming more and more inclined to believe that she is, and that gets destroyed, then that takes care of this side of the world. That the Antichrist, he's really got to only focus on the old world, like Europe, Asia, Africa, Middle East, etc. So it's kind of like we're being channelized into like a particular direction, and it doesn't matter what we do or say. Every crisis going forward, tomorrow, some new thing could happen, some new crazy, unprecedented thing could happen, and all of these things seem to be pointing in the same direction, that we need to have more AI running the government. It's because it's more efficient. We need more surveillance. We need more drones in the air. We need more, and we are creating the perfect prison planet right now that will be in place, ready to go by the time that the Antichrist steps foot on the stage. I think it's going to be all set up for him. So,
yeah, no, it's interesting. Like everything here, like I'm known as the Black Swan. Sometimes I come up with some crazy ideas or whatever, but on my private time, I've been kind of working on doing some research on the idea of the possibility, mathematically, what is the possibility of the ark actually being built in America versus somewhere else? Because I've watched some of the documentaries of people saying different areas of the world where the ark came and all this, and I'm like, what if the ark was actually built here? Because there's traditionally gopher wood is found here and all this stuff, and most people will say no, it has to be Iran, Iraq, or whatever, and all this kind of stuff. But I'm like, you got a whole year and a bit with the ark to actually float around the world. And I thought, what if everything here is lining up to be back to the days of Noah, Genesis 6? You got giants, you got Nephilim, you got all kinds of crazy stuff going on. It feels like North America is starting to line up with Genesis 6 more than any other nation. Like there's so many AI, artificial intelligence, like all this stuff is getting weird. It's getting weird. And I'm like, is there something to the days of Noah that all of a sudden, like we're just ripe right now? When you talk about the Statue of Liberty being a light bearer, and then at the base of it where there's chains, basically almost like the idea that we don't want to be controlled by anyone. And then on the West Coast, you have LA, like Los Angeles, like an area that's dedicated to angels. You got Hollywood, all this stuff, satanic rituals all throughout the country here and there, secret societies. Like, man, if you were to go back in time to Genesis 6 and transport those beings, whatever they were, to here, I'm pretty sure they would feel like this is home. This feels like home. Like we're terraforming it to make it like it goes back to Genesis 6, and they would feel right at home. You open up the bottomless pit and you unleash them, and they're going to look around. We need some kind of a beacon or some mechanism to tell us where we are. Wow, this state or this country looks like they worship deities and all kinds of crazy stuff. This is home, boys. We're home. I don't know. Yeah. It's kind of make a good science fiction movie.
Makes sense to me because I talked about this before. At the end of the 70 weeks, Daniel's 70 weeks, or at the end of the prophetic timeline, if the age of grace, a timeout period, was not inserted after Daniel's 69th week, what would have happened would have been Daniel's 70th week. This is why Jesus was warning the apostles about Daniel's 70th week. You go, look up for your redemption draweth nigh. Okay, endure to the end and all that stuff. They were getting ready to go into Daniel's 70th week, but then God paused it. But that's why Jesus, people think all that stuff there, Jesus was telling the Jews that was for us. It wasn't for them. I mean, it was for them. It wasn't for us. Okay, we talked about that before. But think about this. If you can go back in time, back to 33 AD, 32, 33 AD, Jesus finished works at the cross. All right. If you're standing there in Jerusalem, if you can jump on a plane, which I know they didn't have back then, but if you could fly to America or teleport to America, if you went there, you realize there was nobody there but Nephilim that were here in the Western nations. So if God executed Daniel's 70th week back then, like he was going to without inserting the timeout period, if he would have finished Daniel's 70th week back then it would have made sense for him to burn a third of the trees in the land over in the Western nation because all the Nephilim are over there. So he's like, okay, we're going to do stuff here, but you guys don't know this, but you guys have a Nephilim problem in the other side of the world, which none of you don't even know that part of the world exists. But I'm going to burn that over there. So don't worry about that. That has nothing to do with you. Okay. But now here we are living over here now in the midst of these Nephilim, and they're starting to come out of the ground. You're finding shaking trees and breaking trees and all kinds of weird videos now. You're seeing these things popping up everywhere.
Yeah.
It's because now it's like Jesus said, it's a time of Noah. So guess what? Now, when Daniel's 70th week is executed, God is going to stick to his original plan. He's going to do everything with Jerusalem, everything over there in the east, and he's going to stick with his plan with burning everything in the west. Why? Yeah. Because you have a bunch of Nephilim over here again, but the only difference now is that you have a bunch of, unrepentant human beings here too that reject God.
Yeah, yeah,
and probably a bunch of people would take the mark. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right. So you see what I'm saying? That's why I think he's going to stick with the plan and is going to burn the Western nations. And when you said that, Pete, that a third of the trees are here,
oh, man,
makes perfect sense while he burns the Western nations.
Yeah. And then when you think about submarines, we haven't even talked about the 1/3 of the ships. That was always confusing to me with regards to a sea battle, a world sea battle. I'm like, what's the point? Who cares about, like, there's nothing significant going on in the seas that would cause a third of the ships to go down. And then I thought about it. I went, oh, wait a minute. 99% of internet cables, submarine cables, are all in the seabed. All our telecommunications, all our banking, everything like that goes through these sea cables to Europe. And if you cut those cables, you're going to introduce a whole new chaos factor that nobody saw coming, because we're so vulnerable to the seabed. And now you get subs protecting these cables from there's like 500 cables all over the world, hundreds of thousands of kilometers all over the world. If you cut those things, you're talking about a massive naval battle to protect the cables. That's what I think anyway.
Well, okay, so a couple things. One is that I think it's the second trumpet, which of the second or third trumpet judgment, that the third of the oceans turn to blood. If you think about just what you talked about, submarines, sea cables, all the infrastructure we built into the sea automatically being cut off as it's turned to blood, because you're not going to be able to drive a submarine in an ocean of blood. You're not going to be able to drive a ship in an ocean of blood. I don't mean like red tide. I was born in Galveston, and along the coast every once in a while you get red tide or whatever. You can still function. A boat can still function in that. This is like blood. It would clog up the engines very quickly. Anything in the ocean is going to die or not be able to use it. So that, for some reason, it seems strategic that the oceans are being targeted at turning to blood, so you can't do anything in them. It's going to kill everything, yeah, but you also can't operate anything underwater, etc. So there's that aspect of it. Number two, before the flood, in Genesis 1:11, or excuse me, Genesis 1:9, it says, "Then God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place. Let the dry land appear," and it was so. So if the water was gathered into one place, it seems like the land would also be gathered into one place. So you may have had some type of massive, what do they call it, a supercontinent or whatever. And I don't necessarily subscribe to continental drift in the sense that these continents float, like it looks like South America and Africa look like they connect or whatever. I think what happened was, once the world was inundated with the flood, that some of the land, as the waters began to subside, some of the land rose up and then some of it lowered. So the parts that lowered is what we have now, the oceans, and the land that was raised up was like the Americas, North, Central, South America, etc. And then that created dry land over here, and it was isolated. So by the time that Joshua comes along and he's defeating all the Nephilim, the giants, they begin to beat feet out of there. They left. I think they ended up going through Cyprus, then on to Malta, parts of, because you can follow the trail of all of these megalithic structures and places that seems to have reports of giants and whatnot. And eventually, I think they make it over to the Americas. And that's where they kind of hid out for a couple thousand years. And by the time the natives came over from across from the land bridge, I guess, from in Alaska, so in Russia, Siberia, whatever, they begin to settle and populate and grow in numbers. They didn't like these giants because they're cannibalistic. They were just terrible things. So they eventually had enough tribes that got together and were able to drive them off the land or kill them, like they did in Lovelock Cave in Utah or Nevada. And I think that was kind of like the last kind of remnants of it.
There's even a tradition it's that this is cool, because there's even a tradition with some of the native tribes that they would raise their hand and say how. Kind of goes back to the old cowboy movies, but the idea behind that was to see how many fingers you had. Why? Why, right? Why are you worried about creatures that have 6 fingers, right? So it's definitely bizarre. And when you think about Joshua invading, I'm a big fan of the Old Testament, obviously the Israelites conquering Canaan. Big fan of studying that era. Joshua, like, the plan originally was for God to use hornets to actually flood that land and rid the inhabitants, the Amorites and all the other 6 nations, and flood them and push them forward, because God didn't want to move them too fast, because the animals would overpopulate the land. It's kind of bizarre, right? Kind of interesting. So then, but God changed his mind later and used Israel and said, no, like, after 40 years now, because you guys have been rejecting me so much, here's the way that we're going to do it. I'm going to teach you guys how to fight, all kinds of stuff. You're going to invade this land, and little by little, you're going to take it. So Joshua didn't get rid of everybody. what he did is he attacked 31 kings and he crucified all of them. Don't think that the devil wasn't thinking about that. One day, I'm going to crucify your leader one day in the future, because Joshua's routine, I don't know if he was addicted to crucifixions. What do you call it? Crucifixions? But every king, he'd hang them. And then at the end of the night, he'd take them down, throw them into a cave, throw stones over it, and then move on to the next king. And he would do that for all of them. It's kind of an interesting, crazy thing that Joshua did. But then afterwards, the Israelites were able to now start living in these homes that were already pre-built with fields already made, all this kind of stuff. They just basically took over the land. It's crazy. But the inhabitants were forced out. They didn't destroy all of them. They chased them out of there. If you didn't want to stay and fight against Israel, you fled, and guaranteed portions of these giants left, because Esau fought giants, Ammon fought giants, and Moab fought giants, and they got their land before Israel, fighting Zimzimims and all these crazy giants. They had a huge battle going on while Israel was in Egypt for 400 years. They were battling giants. So where did these giants go? Most likely, like Pete said, they fled to the Europe and to the Asia, and probably across into North America, because our land is riddled full of giants, dinosaur bones, all kinds of the craziest things you can imagine, and they're hiding them from us. Why? Well, this is probably their home turf. Don't know. Just feels like it.
Yeah. I mean, look at all the megalithic structures they have. Huge doors like 30, 40 stories high. These staircases that are like 30 feet. I like, what human being in their right mind would build a staircase like that? What would have been a point of that? I mean, for it to look cool, it completely would not even been feasible. If you were a king building a city and you had your men chiseling away at the rocks and stuff, and you want to stay in power, you want to make your people happy and continue to bring business in and doing everything, you're not building staircases 30 feet high. Okay, you're going to make that city work. All right. So obviously, these are obviously giants that built these megalithic structures, these cities that got torn apart with a huge staircase, a huge door like Petra.
Yeah.
I mean, who needs a door that big, really?
Yeah.
Unless it was for a giant.
Yeah. So when you think of go ahead, Keith.
What I was going to say is, when you think about the somebody, or I was looking in the chat, the talk about Mystery Babylon. When you think about Nebuchadnezzar's statue, you know, it's a multi-metallic statue. It starts with the head of gold, the shoulders of silver, the abdomen of bronze, and legs of iron, and then down to the feet, down to the feet, ankles, and then or down the legs to the ankles and the feet of the iron mixed with miry clay. All of that was Babylon in varying stages, because if the head is Babylon, the feet are Babylon. And if we look at the two big cities, it's kind of like I can't remember the author, The Tale of Two Cities, that wrote that in the 1800s. The two cities in the Bible is Jerusalem and Babylon. And certainly Babylon predates Nebuchadnezzar. You know, it goes all the way back to the time of the Tower of Babel period, because when we look at that mindset, that Babylonian mindset is finding another way apart from God. We're going to do it our own way. And I think we see that representative in all the subsequent nations. And if we are the body of Christ, Christ is the head, we are the body, then it makes sense that Satan is going to try and mimic that. So he is the head, and then his body is not the church, it's the human governments. When you read Luke 4:6, and when Jesus was in the wilderness and Satan is trying to tempt him, and he offers Jesus all the kingdoms of the world at once. He shows him all the kingdoms of the world once. He says, I will give these all to you because they've been given to me, and I can give them to whoever I want. They're his. That's his church. And so he's used these subsequent kingdoms and empires to bring about a way that there's no escape. There's no escape for us out, you know, even as the church. He's going to really clamp down on this world like a spider web that's being constricting around the world, closer and tighter and tighter and tighter. and there's going to be no escape from it. That was his plan. So the church is something that he didn't see coming. We are the kingdom in mystery form right now.
Yeah.
The beast kingdom, the mystery Babylon, I think is it's got to be the United States, because nobody knew about it, even though we are made up of all of those European nations that used to make up the Roman Empire. We are now a conglomerate of all of those, of the Spanish, the French, the British, Canada. I mean, you guys are heavily French and English.
Yep.
You're still part of the UK, right? Or you're
yep. The Commonwealth.
I don't know
all that. Yep.
Yeah. So
yep.
So there's still that touchstone back to the old world is through Rome, and then look at the way Western civilization is really how the Western civilization came about. It was through the Greco-Roman rule of law, rule of life, philosophies, and eventually Christendom began to spread throughout the Western civilization because of the things that the Greco-Roman societies allowed to take place in terms of freedom, libertas, right? The goddess of liberty, libertas is a Roman goddess. That's who the Statue of Liberty is based on. And I think she's like 666 feet tall.
Yeah,
I mean,
crazy.
anyway, so I'm doing a program with Tyler on all this about the United States as Mystery Babylon in probably the next month or two. But like, I just feel like the fires in LA, the drone stuff in the East Coast, and really all over the United States right now, the drones, the plasma orbs, whatever, the just all the weird, bizarre stuff that's happening that never gets resolved. We never get clarification on this stuff. I think is all intentionally designed. There's something special going on right now from Satan's perspective about transforming the Western Hemisphere into something unique and that he's going to use. And that's why God destroys it. And God destroys it. And I don't know if the fire that we see in the first trumpet judgments that destroy the trees stuff, I don't know if that's from Apophis, some comet. Obviously we think it's wormwood. I don't know if wormwood is Apophis is what I'm trying to say. And then it could be the super volcano in Yellowstone, or what do they call it? The
Great
caldera,
Geyser or whatever. Yeah.
The Yellowstone caldera. It's a super volcano, and it kind of touches 4 states. How big it is! If that thing goes up, I mean, the Americas are done. All of the Americas. Life will not exist here in the Western Hemisphere due to the smoke and ash that would basically blanket everywhere because of the weather patterns and the wind direction. How the time of year, if it's northerners blowing the smoke southward, I mean, everything south of Yellowstone is going to be blanketed in ash and smoke. And I think that would extend all the way down into South America. And there may be parts of the Americas where small enclaves of people might exist or might live. But overall, everybody's going to have to flee the Americas and head back to the old world. And Satan is going to have everybody channelized into these little lockdown places where he controls it. So I feel like what we're seeing today with the fires, the orbs, the drones, all of this drama that we see going on, I think is all part and parcel of ultimately setting up the beast kingdom. We're just seeing this. We're looking at this picture like it's a picture in front of us, and we've got it so close to our face right now, we can't tell what it is. We can just see that like 1 or 2 little pixels. But as we begin to pull that picture out, the picture starts to come into focus, right? We start to begin to see what is there. It's like a mosaic, if you will.
Yeah.
So I don't think if Mystery Babylon is encapsulated into a city, or if it's brought together into some kind of a megalopolis, you could have a megalopolis from DC. There's it's like one big city from DC all the way up to New York City. It's just like one giant city. Same thing on the West Coast. You have basically San Diego all the way up to northern Los Angeles area. And then further north, all the San Francisco area going north. Major cities along the coastline. So all I know is that when we get to Revelation 18, and you see that Mystery Babylon is being destroyed, and all the shipmasters, all the people that buy and sell, but primarily the captains of the ships, the people in the ships are seeing her burning from a distance from the ocean. That can't be traditional Babylon. That can't be Iraq, because if we even think about where the ziggurat was in Iraq, where the ziggurat is today in Iraq, where Saddam Hussein had basically done a lot of work to uncover and to restore the ziggurat. That thing's 124 miles from the coast.
Right.
You're not, just because of the curvature of the earth, you're not going to be able to see the smoke and the fire. So there's no
Mm-hmm.
way that a shipmaster or somebody on a ship could see that city burning if it's in the traditional place of Iraq. It has to be somewhere at best, like if you're in the ocean on a ship, you're going to be able to see about 3 miles out on the horizon. It's about the extent of how far you can see. That's your horizon. Beyond that, you lose it because of the curvature of the earth. If you're up on a higher position, I don't know, you're on an island like you're in Hawaii, you're in the very top of the mountain. One of the mountains
you could see further.
About 15 to 20 miles, but that's it.
Yeah.
And the other day, right when the fires were starting, I was talking to Tom Hughes and I was texting him. I was like, "Hey man, can you see the fires from where you are?" And San Jacinto is about 50 miles from where these fires were. He's like, "I can't see it yet." I mean, obviously the smoke is being blown out the other direction, but he couldn't see it. He was only 50 miles away. I was just curious. I was like, "Hey, can you see the fires from where you are?" He's like, "No, I can't." So it seems to me that the United States has some special role to play in these final last days. And I was never a person that subscribed to the idea that the United States was Mystery Babylon. I don't think we're Mystery Babylon in our present construct, because we have a constitution, we have a Bill of Rights, but I think after the rapture of the church, what happens is it collapses our current structure, and then we all get grafted in together. America, Canada, Greenland, maybe even Mexico is going to be part of some type of a North American Union, and we all fall under the tutelage of some type of a king, prime minister, president, whatever. And he is just one of 7 or one of 10 that end up ruling and controlling the world. And it may be said it's just a temporary measure, but ultimately we know the Antichrist comes up, subdues 3 of the kings, and then he takes over the whole enchilada. So I think that's, I don't know. It's interesting to see all this stuff happening.
Yeah, like when I read the Bible and I'm coming across verses like shipmen are crying and weeping because they're seeing this city being burned off the coast. I'm like, every time I read it, I feel like it's New York. I feel like it's off the coast of New York, and I feel like I could see that place burning down and people weeping and crying like how magnificent this place was and how great was this city, all kinds of stuff. And then I try and think, okay, let's say it's not New York. What other country in the world would nations weep if it went under right away, like losing money, all kinds of crazy stuff that New York City has been guilty of as well. Like they have atrocities as well that have been hid underneath when we're talking about abortion starting there, all kinds of stuff. What other nation that has to be on a coastline where people in ships could see them and would go, oh my goodness, this is the greatest nation in the world. What happened? How did this place fall? There's not very many. It's not very many that you could say that. China, maybe we could say like Hong Kong. Like you'd have to look around and go, which one kind of fits the biblical narrative where it's going to cause the seamen, all the people that are trading, to go, this is a horrible loss for the world. What nation or what area would have to fit that role? I keep coming back to New York. Like and that may not be the place, but it's weird that you have the Statue of Liberty. Like I said, you have, with all the stuff going on in LA with Hollywood, like worshiping stars, like literally worshiping stars. It's crazy. I don't know.
Yeah. California, and I know there are a lot of good Christians, and I have a lot of friends that are Christians in California, very devout people that view California very much as a mission field. Jack Hibbs, Tom Hughes, Brandon Holdhouse, all of I just friends of mine that live there that are believers see it very much as a mission field. But California is not unique to this godlessness that we see, very prevalent there. I mean, we see that basically in every major city. We're seeing this godlessness that rises up because of the Democrat, progressive, leftist policies that are driving out Christians from even wanting to live in those cities. And I think that's intentional. And think about it this way: if you're Satan and you know that rapture is coming, You don't know when it's going to happen, but you know that if you have Christians throughout all these different kind of governments and stuff, the minute the rapture happens, everybody's going to be taken out, and everything is going to fall apart, and that's just more work for Satan to do. So it's easier now to get Christians out of those positions of authority through DEI, SDG, woke policies, etc., so that when the rapture happens, those structures will remain intact. So that's why I think the United States, when we collapse, I think it's going to hit us harder than it's going to hit other nations. So, for example, like the United States versus Russia or versus China, we have. It's not to say that we have more Christians in the United States than there are Christians in China. The Christians in America, though, are at every level of social strata in the United States, at every level of government, every level of military, corporate, etc., across the spectrum. But if you're a Christian in China, you can't be part of the government unless you profess your worship of the state itself. You basically have to denounce Christ, denounce God, and say that the state is your God. And so Christians in good conscience will not take that, or if they're in the positions and become a Christian, they leave because they can't continue to serve in that position. If my current job right now said, "Hey, Pete, you're going to have to declare your whoever the head of the company is, you have to worship this individual in order to keep your job." Well, you know what? Here's my 2 weeks. I don't even need 2 weeks. Here's me telling you I'm done. And so Christians in China are at the bottom levels of the social strata there. So when they get removed, even though there are more Christians in China, China as a institution, as a state or whatever, is not going to be impacted to the degree that we will be here in the United States when you have congressmen, police officers, military leaders, doctors, lawyers, etc. That's going to cripple us. It's like when you watch a building that's being demolished or blown up or whatever, they put explosives on every level. That's what I see, like collapsing the United States like that. We're going to collapse down like that. Now, the United States will still exist. I mean, we'll still be here on the map. There'll still be the boundaries, etc. But what comes out of the ashes of this, I think, is going to be a really perverted idea of the United States, if even more perverted than perhaps what we've already seen. And that's where I think is the kind of the final stage of this mystery Babylon. And it goes for a point, and then they're overthrown by the 10 kings because they hate her. And right now, American political will around the world is at probably an all-time low under the Biden administration, which is why we had the rise of BRICS, why we have the rise of the World Economic Forum. Like, who gives so much power to these organizations, especially the WEF? They're not elected. They're not, who give them authority to dictate how we should, that we have to build so many 15-minute cities in the United States? Nobody elected them here to tell us to do that. There's people that have bought into this ideology of a one world system. And they're the ones that I think are helping orchestrate the dismantling of this current world order in order to make room for the next world order. So,
there's man, it's almost like where do you begin with some of this stuff, because there's so many things lining up with, even like with the book of Daniel and stuff, like you mentioned. Like when you think about something as simple as a ruler that's going to be, his focus is almost like the god of the forces. Well, if you think about the chief in command, again, not saying that Trump is the Antichrist. I don't want to go there. I don't want to trip people up. But my goodness, if you're thinking about some Antichrist figure, his focus is going to be on specializing in war, and he's going to come in and he's going to make deals, peace, and all this kind of stuff. But there are going to be some countries that don't want to follow along with his mandate. They're going to rebel against him, and he's going to lose the first battle, go back, lick his wounds. But then he comes back even stronger, and nobody could stop him. He's able to wear down the saints, all kinds of stuff going on here. Wear down heavenly hosts, I think is the way it's phrased. So there's something going on where whoever this Antichrist is, I feel like it's almost like a combo job. Either he's possessed by Satan himself, or he's half Nephilim, half human. Don't know what it is. Something weird going on, that this guy's focused. He's not attracted to women. He doesn't desire women. He's focused on something where it's like not a God that not even his fathers worshipped, which is weird. And then he targets Jerusalem. He looks at it and goes, this wouldn't be too bad of a place to run one day in the future. So it's kind of, I don't know who the Antichrist is, but I know America is in trouble right now. And so is Canada. If we don't straighten the ship out, it feels like we've hit the iceberg already, and we're not aware that the bottom 13 decks are underwater already. It's like we're not aware of it yet, because it's pretty, like, I live in Alberta. Alberta's a great state. I mean, Alberta's a great province. Like it's fantastic here. Like it's peaceful here. Like it feels like Texas here. And we don't get all these crazy interruptions like what's going on in the East with all your drones and all the crazy stuff. And then you don't get stuff going on with fires and all that. We get little fires here and there. But I feel like if we're not on our toes with regards to the Bible, knowing the word inside and out, man, we're going to just get slapped around by the enemy like crazy for 2025. We really are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I saw in the chat something about the flat earth. I find it, if you take the world's most powerful telescope, I'm talking about a telescope that can look at Pluto and count the dots on Pluto. I mean, the most powerful telescope. You put it on the coast. You point it out over the Pacific and say, I'm going to prove once and for all that I can see China from here with this powerful telescope. You're not going to ever see China because of the curvature of the earth. That's something that anybody can prove at any time. You can simply take and it's been done. And the fact that we can't see China from here, even with the most powerful telescope in the world, means that the earth is curved and just sheer line of sight. And as a pilot, having been around this world many, many, many times, I can tell you that the earth is round. It is absolutely a sphere.
It's funny. I will also. My moderator is losing her fingers right now. I don't know if she's having to put people into timeout or punting people or whatever. I don't want to cut you off. Go ahead. You're a pilot. But yeah, she's busy right now in the comments. Just delete, punt, delete.
It's easy. It's easy to prove. And not only that, but if you look at every other planet, get your own. Anybody that subscribes to Flat Earth, look at any other planet. Go get a telescope. Yeah. Look at other planets. They're all spheres. So every other planet in the world is every other planet in our solar system is a sphere, but somehow we're a flat disk. That doesn't make any sense. That just seems nonsensical to begin with. But just go to the coast, go to the beach, you can go to wherever you live, wherever the closest coast is, and say, I'm going to look at whatever's across the ocean for me. I was born in Galveston. If I could look out from Galveston and say, hey, I'm going to point my telescope at Cuba and see if I can see Cuba, you're not going to see it because of the curvature of the earth.
Right.
You're not going to be able to see it.
Yeah.
And you can't see China from this.
My biggest beef is NASA. That's my beef. I don't trust anything that they're up to. And that's the crazy part.
I'm not standing up for NASA. NASA has a lot of, going back to its founding with Werner von Braun, there's a lot of shady stuff going on with NASA. I am not defending NASA.
Yeah.
I'm just saying from a logical perspective, and even from a biblical perspective, God is not the author of confusion. He is not going out there and making, we're not going to be shaped like a triangle and every other planet in the universe is shaped like a rectangle. I would have serious questions about that unless we could prove we're a triangle. Same thing with being a flat disc, the firmament. I've heard all these arguments for years and years. Don't take my word for it. Go to the coast, get the best telescope you can get, and see how far out you can get. And you're not going to be able to see far because of the curvature of the earth. Give me 1 second here.
Yep, for sure. It's interesting that I've heard stories of people where they actually go to the seashore and then they'll take like a Nikon camera and they'll actually zoom out. They'll look at a ship and the ship will actually disappear over the horizon. And then all of a sudden they'll use these P970s or whatever they are. And all of a sudden the ship comes back into view. And for me, that just begs curiosity. Whenever you have stuff only because of what NASA's doing. Like NASA gets all crazy with all their lies and twisted stuff and all this, and then it makes a person go, man, I don't know who to trust or believe, because sometimes they're telling me don't believe with your eyes. Don't believe it. So that's kind of where the perspective that I am. I'm not an astronaut. I've never been to the moon or the Mars or anything. I just don't think we've been there. But if like, I don't want people to go crazy on the comments going, it's flat, it's round, it's flat, it's round, or whatever, because my moderators are going to break their fingers because they're trying to punt people and all this kind of stuff. But it's interesting what Pete said, because he's a pilot, right? And if Pete says, oh yeah, I see the edge and stuff, well, you got to go off of what he says. I personally have not seen curvature. I've been in planes and all I see is just kind of flat wherever I go. It's not to say it's flat, but I haven't seen the curve either. So, and I don't like NASA. I don't want anything. I don't trust anything that they say. So I guess I'm kind of like in purgatory, Pete. Like, you're a pilot. Help me out. Help me get out of purgatory. Like, for myself, like I was just telling the audience, like, I've never seen the curve. Every time it seems like when I go into a plane, I see as flat as, and I'm seeing beyond 20 miles above the clouds. But if you're saying you're a pilot and you see the curve, man, it's case closed. You could see the curve. There you go. Bum, 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 bum. We shouldn't see far as we can. Case closed, right?
It's not just me. It's every pilot that I know says the same thing too. Everybody, especially airline pilots that go up to 30, 40,000 feet. Yeah. Military pilots that go up higher than that. A friend of mine used to fly Crusaders. He'd fly up right at the edge of space. He'd be at 60,000 plus feet or somewhere. I don't forget where it right is.
Yeah.
Absolutely sees the curvature.
Yeah.
And
so you have to go off of that.
He's had issues with UFOs flying.
Right. Yeah. So you have to go off that. Like, if you ask, let's say, a bunch of pilots and they're all saying, oh yeah, I have no problem, I see the curvature, it's at this point. You're never going to see the curvature when you're on Earth. That's fair. That's fair, because then you could say, okay, you have to get 10,000 feet before you could start the curvature. But people are saying on the ground that, oh yeah, you could start to see the curvature. I'm like, well, no, the pilots are saying you could see it after a certain height. So I could believe the pilots going, hey, we got 100 pilots that say you got to climb to 10,000 feet before you could see the curvature. So shut up. If you're on the shore, you can't see the curvature. Like, you can't have both. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, if you have to go higher up. So I like the idea of the pilots. If they say it and they're like, hey, we've seen it. I'm just saying I haven't seen it, but I've also haven't been to the moon either. Is the moon real? Yeah, I think it is. It seems like we could see craters. No, because was that your boy?
Yeah, it was Titus. They just got home, so I had to move my car out of the way so my wife could pull into the garage. But
no, cool.
I don't want to get off on that rabbit trail, but I just thought that I don't get it, man. I don't.
I think
of all the things that we have to worry about right now in the world, all the crazy stuff, the last thing I need to worry about is whether somebody the Earth could be shaped like a donut for all I care. I don't even at this point.
What do you mean
we have
it's
so much
shaped like
stuff
a
going on
donut
right now?
What do you mean it's shaped like a donut? What? Donut? What?
It could be.
No. What? No, I get it. For me, I look at NASA. I have more of a problem with NASA than anything else. But you're right. Like, we have more fires to fight right now here on Earth. Literally more fires to fight. Right?
You're right, man. So, there's so many things going on right here on terra firma that we have to deal with that don't make any sense.
Yeah.
I don't need to be piling on more.
No, for sure.
Conspiracy. Here is a conspiracy that I mentioned the other day on a live stream. That is Bob gone, or did he drop off or something?
I don't know what happened to Bob. I think he got raptured. Let me see here. Usually he leaves a comment. Something, I don't know if he didn't leave a comment, so I'm not sure. I thought maybe it was just technical issues. Usually he texts me. Let me just see.
Well,
oh, he had to go. So we'll talk. Yeah. So he just had to go.
One of the things I mentioned the other day, and it's fascinating to me, is all of the resurgence of the sightings of Bigfoot, Dogman, Chupacabra, whatever, all the different cryptid things that are happening out there.
Yep.
One of the things that I find that I have a theory on this, and it ties in with the Nephilim, it ties in with Mystery Babylon, etc. If you remember back in the old days, the maps that the sailors had, they
Yes.
had the maps for everything they had charted out, but everything beyond that, there was like a little thing on the map that said, "Here there be monsters," like in a sea creature, on the map drawn in there, because they didn't know what was out there. Same thing with Tartarus or Tartaria and all of that. There was just certain parts of the world that weren't really mapped out very well. And I think in the case of the cryptids and why we've seen this explosion of them, I have no doubt that people see these things. There's too many reports, too many eyewitness reports. There's video, audio, etc. But the one thing that I find fascinating is that it seems to be cropping up. We had talked earlier about how the Nephilim kind of settled in the Americas because there wasn't anybody here at the time, and they just kind of took over.
Right.
I think those are remnants of that. These aren't biological creatures. These are kind of a hybrid. They can appear and disappear kind of thing, or they have some way to. If they were biological animal creature type things, we would have found remains. We would have found the bones, the scat, the fur, whatever. We would have seen that many, many, many times over. But what I find fascinating is that it seems like they're taking over the wildlands. And so if you are a fan of the Missing 411 series, which I've David Politis, I've watched all of those and stuff. And all of the missing thousands of people over the decades that have gone missing in national parks and stuff, and these aren't just the average people that have a heart attack while they're hiking or they fall off a cliff or they, whatever. These are if you have 100% of the cases of missing people, and 95% of them can be explained through some type of, Occam's razor, natural cause kind of thing. That still leaves 5% that are unexplainable. And these are like they defy every known logical idea, reason, cause, etc. There's no way that it makes any sense. I feel like these things are also taking over and driving people away and driving people towards urban areas, trying to clear people out and getting us channelized that way. And I think that aspect of, there's a popular podcast called Blurry Creatures. I think these blurry creatures, whatever you want to call them, are rising up because of not because of the resurgence of paganism in the Western Hemisphere, which is definitely neo-paganism now, but it's like a tulpa, in ancient Hebrew times. A tulpa was a creature that you could manifest into reality by thinking about it. And certain people apparently had this power to do this. They could manifest some type of Frankenstein looking creature to come out and do whatever they wanted to do. I think the more attention that we give these things, the more power we give these things to, and these are demonic entities. They are Nephilim type entities that are not fully human, not fully spiritual beings that now are manifesting it and scaring people and driving people away from places because it's designed to drive us and get us into little pockets of humanity so they can control us easier. I think that's one aspect of it that I need to do more research into. I know some folks have, L.A. Marzulli and others, but I want to look into those things of all the missing sighting cases across the United States, Canada, Australia, Europe, and how these things are beginning to manifest more and more. And just like I mentioned at the beginning of when I came on, the video of these black specter looking things flying through the skies, like clear video pictures of these things that are like, the UFOs, the orbs, the plasma balls, or whatever they are. There's a guy flying there was some video footage taken from a corporate jet that they saw this thing. They were at 40,000 feet, and this thing was way above them, and they were filming it from the inside of the plane, filming it out, and it's changing colors, changing shapes. It's not anything that we possess technology wise, I don't think it's holographic technology. I know we possess holographic technology. I am convinced that they will use it at some point. I think they're saving it though for the grand finale, Project Bluebeam, whatever.
Right.
But
Right.
we're seeing all this stuff. So on top of the mysterious wildfires, on top of the drones, on top of the just the crazy stuff going on right now that there's no answers to. Now there's this resurgence of the occult, the resurgence of neo-paganism, the resurgence of these things coming out of the shadows that are driving people away from the countryside and driving them back into cities and driving them back into civilization. And I think that's by design as well. They're taking over. They're claiming territory for their master Satan. And I feel like this is like I don't know. It's all, we would need a 5-hour podcast just to like even scratch the surface on all the weird, bizarre things that are happening. Not, not counting the fact that we are discovering ancient sites, ancient ruins. The archaeologists are going out there and studying and reciting the little cryptic language symbols or whatever, decoding it, and now they're saying it, and now it's like giving power to these things to come forth.
Yeah.
Like a spell that's being, like when you read it out loud, just like in CERN. In CERN, they have these um, letters in every language, ancient language, that when they open this portal to another dimension or whatever they're trying to do, the first thing these things would see is these, well, hey, welcome to Earth. We are humans. We are blah blah blah. Whatever it is that they're saying. But there's multiple language in these glass things that we know CERN is trying to open portals. We know that's what they were trying to do with the Tower of Babel. We know that this throughout time they're trying to do this, and that's just what we know about right now. You and I we're on this live stream together on YouTube. There may be some secret group meeting in some part of the world that are doing these rituals that are summoning these things to come forth, especially the Luciferian type people that want to use this power. Think back to the last 3 elections with Trump.
Yeah.
You had Wiccans coming out like crazy trying to cast spells on Trump, like,
wow.
We might think that's a little off or crazy, but they don't think it's crazy. They think it's real. They absolutely 100% believe that the power they have through Wicca or through Santeria or through voodoo or through whatever else that they are into has power. And it's like that tulpa. They're manifesting these things into reality through demonic powers.
Right.
And I guess one way to look at it is to think about the way the world was before the flood and the way the world was immediately after the flood. I think before the flood, there was no veil between the physical and the spiritual. Humans and angels could interact, and we humans back then could see these things. And that's where all the world's mythology stem from, is that antediluvian period, because there were demigods, because there were humans that were products of half human, half angel. And through however that works biologically or whatever, I don't know. I know angels can manifest physically, so these fallen angels should also be able to manifest physically. If a holy angel can manifest and walk up and have lunch with Abraham on the plains of Mamre, or other things that the angels did throughout the Old and New Testament, these unholy angels, if they're the same nature, types of how they're created, should also be able to manifest physically as well. Demons can't manifest physically, which is why I believe they're the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, because their body has been destroyed in the flood. And now they just have a spirit. Now they're looking to possess things, and not just possess people, but I think they can possess things. And I think the image of the beast, whatever that is, whenever that happens, in the system that they use, I think will be that system will be possessed by, and it'll appear like it has life, like it has intelligence, like it has sentience, like what we think of as the singularity, but it's not going to be actual computers gaining sentience. It's going to be demonic entities possessing these systems, these quantum systems, pretending to be AI, but in reality, they are demonic beings that are bent on deception and destruction. So we're seeing this great blurring of technology, magic, the supernatural, the natural, all of that right now in this time period. It's all swirling around, and if you don't know Jesus Christ, you're going to get sucked into this thing like a riptide, right? But we have the truth finder right here in Scripture that shows us, hey, this reality is not the only reality that exists. There's other dimensions where these other beings. That's why the Bible is so apt to warn us not to mess with that stuff, because we are not prepared. We are not capable of handling the beings that you are going to encounter when you open up your third eye or your pineal gland or whatever the case is, when you go into these altered states, or what do they call that when you're looking into they call it
almost like, yeah, I forget what that is. Almost like you're transporting or whatever your body out of your body or whatever.
Yeah, I can't think of the phrase. Somebody
astro
projection.
Yeah,
astral projection.
Like that.
Yeah. We can't. The people that have done that and encountered those kinds of beings, we are not prepared for that. Those people are not prepared for that. That's why God warns us against using Ouija boards or any of that stuff, praying to the dead, any of that. Stay away from that stuff, because we are not equipped to handle those. Those things are infinitely older than we are. They know all the mysteries of the world. They were, they were there at the creation of the world. They were there when the pyramids were built. They know who built them. They saw them being built. They know when they know the exact day Christ was born. They know exact day and year Christ died. We debate over it right now. Like, I think it's 33 AD based off of the evidence that I've studied. Somebody might be equally convinced that it was 32 AD or 31 AD or 30 AD.
Yep.
And so we debate amongst that because none of us were there. We just have the evidence and we're trying to make sense of the evidence, but they were physically there. They know exactly when. And that's why I think they're so fixated on the year 2030. It's weird. It's bizarre for them to be so tied up. But that's the 2000, that 4-year period is like the 2000th anniversary since the last time Christ, since Christ's first advent, since he was last here on the earth.
Right.
So there's something significant with 2030. I don't know if it's the midpoint of the tribulation, the start of it, the end of it. I don't know, but like, there's something with this time frame, and I think that's why the wheels are coming off the bus right now, and most people are scratching their head trying to figure out what is going on. The world has just gone insane, like the lunatics have fully taken over.
Yeah,
so
it's true. It's true. So we have about 8 minutes left, and I wanted to kind of get your kind of like your final thoughts. We covered a lot of territory today. We went all the way back to the flood. We went back to the beginning of time. But what's kind of on your agenda over the next couple of weeks with some of your shows? Maybe people can, if they're on my channel and they don't know about your channel, what are some of the things that you're working on your show?
Well, tomorrow I have a live with Lauren Karen, and she does the Certainty for Uncertain Times. Very active on YouTube and Instagram, and so we're going to be talking about Elon Musk and all the things surrounding him as a potential candidate for either one of the 10 kings or maybe potentially the false prophet. I personally quit believing the false prophet was purely like a pope or some type of religious thing. I think for like a guy like Elon Musk, technology is his god, and that may be why it was unknown in the old times, times of Daniel or whatever, that he worshipped a god that what is it? Butchering the paraphrase, but like
God of forces.
His fathers didn't know. Yeah. So we're going to talk about him then, and then I'll be on with the Sunshine Church out of New Mexico on Sunday. So the day before the inauguration, that'll be a Sunday afternoon, and then that Monday, am I on with you again on that inauguration day? I thought that's the day we were doing it.
Sure. No, I don't have anything planned. I'm actually I'm out of town on that day on Monday. I'll be watching it from Phoenix on that day. That'd be interesting.
So
watching it from America.
I'll probably have a program that day, and then that next day, Tuesday, I'll be on with Andy Woods. Okay. And then or I'll have them on my channel that day.
That's going to be a big day for watchers, the 20th.
Oh yeah.
I think a lot of channels are going to be going live on the 19th and the 20th. It's crazy.
So and then I'll be on with. I wrote it down.
And you're going to be back here, right, in a couple weeks, kind of thing, to recap, if we're still here.
Yeah, just hit me up. I'll be on with Carol Vay on the 30th. I'm finishing my book. It's called Blink. I'm probably just gonna have to self-publish on Amazon, but I'm going through like the third edit on it, and everybody that's read it's really liked it. So I'll put it on Amazon, and I'll make it as cheap as I can possibly make it, just because Amazon will force you to charge a certain percentage to cover the cost for the paper, the book, the formatting, all that.
So not
that'll
Blink,
come out.
not Blink like Malcolm Gladwell's Blink, but a different Blink.
Yep. Ted Decker had a book called Blink too that came out in I think 2003. So I'll have to add a subtitle to it to make it differentiate it from these other books. But it's done. I've sent it to actually some of the folks, and I don't know if anybody in the audience has gotten it, but I've sent it out to some probably about 10 people. Just said, hey, read it. Let me know if it's good, bad, if it sucks, if it's great. Give me feedback on it so I can adjust.
You should send it to me. I'll read it.
Yeah, I'll send right after this. I'll send it to you. So it's in PDF or Word document.
Yeah, PDF's fine.
Okay, I'll send it to you in a PDF, and then
I'll
have the conference. I'll be doing the conference with Pastor Kurt Reed, Lee Brainerd, a guy named Troy Brewer. I don't know him. I really don't know anything about him. And then Pastor Gary McKibben in Ireland, in Belfast, Northern Ireland, at the end of February, beginning of March. So I'll be in Northern Ireland for a week and a half or maybe 2 weeks or so there. And then after that, I don't know. That's pretty far out for me, but I imagine so much will have, even doing a conference at the end of February. I was telling Gary, I was like, man, so much is going to happen between now and then. It's going to be hard to like really wrap our minds around everything that's coming out. I mean, ever since 2020, man, it's been nonstop, and it's only going to get crazier and crazier the further along we go. But your channel, I've become a lot more selective in who I do programs with, just because of time, because things pop up all the time. But for the most part, if anytime you reach out to me, if I can do it, I will.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Maybe in February sometime, that'll give me a chance to read your book. Maybe we can just talk about it, and I could do a little bit of a review on your book and my thoughts or whatever. And if you want to be on the show, we can talk about it, and what were your thoughts behind it and all this kind of stuff. What did you learn since writing the book and all that kind of stuff. I love authors, so I love talking about their books.
Yeah, and hopefully by then it'll be already published and stuff. I hate doing all that stuff on Amazon. I was hoping to get it done through another company, but if I were to wait for a publishing company, it'd be another 6 to 8 months for that would even come out. So I'll just do it now.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, we can talk about that, and then I don't know what else I've got going on.
Again, if we're still here, if we haven't been raptured by then.
Last thing.
Yep.
So Tyler and I, Generation 2434, are working on a Mystery Babylon, and so he and I will do that in person together. I have a whiteboard, and then also what I'm putting together, we're putting all our notes and stuff together now. That will be all put together in a resource, so that when you watch the video, you can click on the link, and then it takes you to all our notes. It'll take you to all the common, rebuttals, questions, people, everything that you could think of will be attached to that, graphics and stuff like that. So that'll just be on my website, a whole page or whatever dedicated to that. So people don't have to just try and cram it all in the video. They can also have the notes to either read ahead before they watch it, or they can watch the video and then get the stuff afterwards. But it'll be, I can make it in a PDF form. They can just download it to their computer, or just read it through the website itself. So that will be accessible. We don't have a date yet, but I think between now and probably the end of February, we'll have.
So what's your website that people can go to as well?
Oh, it's rev310.net.
.net. Okay, I'll put that up right now. Boom, there it is. Rev310.net. Go check that out. Subscribe to Pete's channel as well, at the same name. And also, I'm just throwing this out there, I'm actually working on a book as well the title to be determined, but it's basically, it's either 66 insights from the Bible from the Black Swan, or it's 666 insights from the Bible. Not sure. I'm leaning on 66 right now.
I created I have a great graphic for Black Swan that I made that I was going to email. I just keep forgetting that. I'm going to send it to you with that book.
Yeah,
So
please
I'll send you the
do.
graphic. It's very cool.
Please
Anyway,
do.
so
my plan is
yeah,
to release it next January, February, sometime next year. So maybe if you read it, you could do the opening or something for me in it. That'd be fun.
I'll do a forward for you.
Thank you. That'd be awesome. But thanks,
fact,
man. Yeah, go ahead. We got time.
One of the favorite things I've ever written was the forward for Lee Brainerd's book.
Oh, nice.
The New Heavens, New Earth. It's very thin, not very big, but I wrote the forward for it, and he asked me to write it, and I thought, well, I've never written a forward before, so I don't really know how that's going to look, but I love how it turned out. I mean, it just was amazing because, and it was true. It's all true. Like, it's how I felt reading the book, and it's a very easy read, and I recommend people check that out. Whether the earth is completely destroyed by fire, or does God use fire to purge it, and then we have the same earth. And so it's a fascinating conversation and topic to look into, and it's overflowing with scripture.
Oh, wow.
Anyway,
I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it. I've had Lee on my channel. I think he's working on like 4 or 5 books right now, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's crazy, man. He's crazy. How many books can a guy write in a year?
Here's a fiction series that he has. Amazing. He puts more facts and detail into his fiction stuff than I've seen people put into nonfiction. Like, it is.
Oh, wow.
It will blow you away how much science is in this book, and how much in terms of astronomy and all the physics and everything that goes along with. Anyways, it's about a rogue planet that hits the Earth, and it ties in with wormwood and all that kind of stuff. So it's a cool idea, cool story, and
that is cool.
But yeah, so just doing that. I'm going to keep my Monday Bible study or Monday lives going. I'm going to start a Bible study. I finished Revelation. Now I'm going to do Jude and then Ephesians, or I may do Ephesians and Jude. I haven't decided which way to go, but that'll be like on a Wednesday, Friday night type thing. And people want to go through those books, they can.
Jude's great. When you get a chance, check out, I just did a video on Jude last week. I did a PowerPoint presentation on it. It's only 26 verses or something, so it's actually not bad. It took about I think I talked for like an hour or whatever on it, but I have slides and whatever kind of thing. But Jude's a powerful book, man. It's crazy.
I love the chiasm, the chiastic structure of Jude, and I have a great graphic for the chiastic structure of it. And
I wish I could pretend to know what that means.
Oh, do you have a way to? Can I share the screen real quick? Or,
yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think you can. I think you can share it, and then I'll pop it up here.
Let me find it first. Let's see.
Like, if you put it in a private link, I can punch it up. If you have a link, or you can email it to me.
Yeah, people can screenshot it too. If we put it up here, they'll be able to let's see, where did I put it? I got so many different things here. My conference, it's under my conference. It's also my website as well. So this would have been Colorado 22. Jude, here we go. Acts of the Apostates. It is a cool presentation. And I came across the chiasm in Jude, and I just thought, man, a lot of the Bible's written like this. Here it is. I'll make it big so you can see it. And share screen. Sorry, this is taking so long. I wasn't prepared to show this.
That's okay. It's okay. I'm just trying to respect your time. I have all night.
Here it is.
So.
Coming.
Boom. Oh, look at that. All right, what are we looking at here?
Yeah. You can move my banner if you want to move that banner out of the way.
Oh, yeah.
Hide that banner.
Oh, interesting. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think I've heard. I didn't know that's what that was called, but I think I've seen this. What's his name? Aaron from God a Minute talks about that with the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, with Leviticus being in the center, and then they work its way out. Like you got Genesis, Leviticus, or Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and then Numbers, Deuteronomy, and he says there's patterns in there. It's kind of cool. Let's see. What am I looking at here? Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that the patterns in some certain books in the Bible, that it's so cool how God orchestrated all this from before the creation of the world. This was already written. Like you just I don't know. I'm
going to take a picture of this too right now for my own little study. I love this kind of stuff.
And,
yeah, Jude is very powerful.
I'll do this Bible study. I may do it over like a month, like four sessions on it, just kind of break it down into like say 4 sections. And then all of the material, if they go to my website, they can just go, if they're on a laptop, it's much easier. They just go to the top of the web page and then they can click on the tabs of I think conferences or presentations. I don't know which the title, but they'll be able to pull up every presentation I've done at a conference is there in a PDF. I can't put it in a PowerPoint. The website doesn't let me do that, but I can put it as a PDF. Okay. And people can download it and look at that. And not just Jude, but all the other 8 or 9 presentations I've done at conferences, they can do that. But yeah, it's fascinating. Love it. Anyway, so I'm into all this stuff.
Yeah, I like it.
All my time as an Army commissioned officer, I definitely earned my PowerPoint Ranger tab, that I can create things on PowerPoint pretty easy. So
yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, well, I love you, bro. Thank you for being on here. That was awesome.
Yeah, man, I'm sorry I forgot. Sorry I was late.
No worries at all. Thank you. I appreciate you. I know you're a busy guy, so anytime you can pop on here, you have an open invitation. Obviously, you're welcome here. So yeah, thanks a lot, everyone, as well. Don't forget to check out Rev 310. Check out his channel. I think probably half the audience was yours anyway, because you've sent a lot of people to my channel as well. So my audience is quite familiar with you. So thank you for that as well. But I appreciate you. So I hope you have a fantastic day. Have a fantastic week as well. And I look forward to reading your book as well.
Okay. Yeah. I'll be on tomorrow at 11:30 Central Standard Time with Lauren going over the false prophet stuff. So if anybody's online or available tomorrow, that's where I'll be.
Awesome. All right. I'm just going to toss you in the back for a sec while I say bye to everyone. Awesome. Thanks, Pete. All right. Thanks, everyone. Hope you got something out of today's episode. This is it was fantastic to have Pete on here. Fantastic also to have Bob Barber. Bob Barber had to go. I think he had an emergency or something. So, but thank you guys for watching the show. If you missed Bob Barber, just go back to the beginning of the show when he was on. And don't forget to subscribe or resubscribe to the channel, because I know from time to time people get unsubbed on my channel, and it's not me. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in another video. Bye for now.